Welcome to another episode of Morning Mojo with me, your host, Shane Solomon. I'm delighted to welcome on the sofa this morning Nicola Lloyd. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm going to get straight into the content, and that is, can we be successful still in a small county like Cornwall?
Absolutely. I mean, Cornwall is an incredibly lucky place. We've got, I'd say, two key things that most places don't have. One is that most people absolutely love Cornwall. So there's just this amazing emotional tie that people have, and they want to see Cornwall do well. And the second is that we've got the most amazing kind of natural environment, which we can't, we can't always decide we're going to be the next Silicon Valley or whatever, but nobody can take away our natural resources. So certainly when it comes to what we do from an inward investment point of view, we're able to look at some really key opportunities that Cornwall has that no one else can beat us on, and taking those to the world and making sure that people know that if you want to invest in Cornwall in those specific areas, they've got to come here. Then that's a real pleasure to be able to do.
Indeed. I mean, Cornwall PLC as a brand itself is remarkable. We only have to look at when they had the G7 summit here on that world stage and just seeing how beautiful it looked. I mean, it could have been anywhere in the world aspirational, couldn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, everybody has a connection to Cornwall, no matter who you speak to. It doesn't matter where in the world you're talking to them, there's always some connection that someone has, and it's usually a really positive one. And the G7 was a great opportunity for us to really shout about Cornwall and really shout about where Cornwall's going next, because I think it's a really exciting time for the place. It's really moving into a whole different set of industries, a whole different set of opportunities for people who are growing up here, and yeah, it's really hard to compare it to anywhere else.
Mm.
We're really lucky, I think, to have all of that in one place.
There certainly is a magic about it. I often go to London on business, and when I'm there, and if I ever get onto the subject of where I'm from, they're always like, "Oh, I love Cornwall," or "I used to go there when I was younger," or "My family came from there," or "My uncle lives in Redruth," or there's always some love for Cornwall, whoever I speak to, wherever I travel. So, inspirations for you. This is a inspirational, motivational podcast. Where do you pull your inspirations from for life in general?
Well, I'm a real fan of hard work and people being motivated for the right reasons. So when I think about who I'm uh, influenced by and who I gain inspiration by, I think it's normally the kind of unsung heroes. I think people can quote about all of the big names in business, and but for me, it's the entrepreneurs that I come across, the people that are doing amazing stuff for charity, and the people that really want to do things for the right reasons. Those are the people that I really get a kick out of and
Mm.
look towards.
Now, Cornwall packs a lot of punch, and we talked about it in whether we can succeed as a small county. But it packs a lot of punch in that it's got so much going for it. Of course, people might think that we're at the end of nowhere, but our infrastructure for the internet, for example, down here, super fast connectivity, really is on par with anywhere else in the country, I would say. But why should businesses look at relocating to Cornwall, in your opinion? I mean, there must be many, but just a couple off the top of your head.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Cornwall being the end of the country, and I've heard certain people in Cornwall who are, I can't necessarily name, but who talk about Cornwall as the start of the UK. We can
I
look at
like
it
that.
from the totally different end of the scale, and when you think about, the data cables coming into Cornwall from across the Atlantic, when you think about Goonhilly Earth Station receiving those amazing communications from space, it's really the start of where things happen.
Do you know what? That is a great way of looking at it.
Well, it's and that's, I think, slightly the issue. A, do we think about Cornwall in that way locally? And B, does the rest of the UK think of Cornwall in that way? And I think part of my job and part of, everybody who, lots of people want to act as an ambassador for Cornwall. And I'd say it would be really great if everybody started to shift those perceptions a little more.
Do you know what? I really love championing Cornwall wherever I go. And I'm going to take that from all these podcasts so far. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to be in London tomorrow, and I know I'm going to use that tomorrow.
I really should be quoting who it was that told me that now.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to quote them when you find out who made the quote, but it all starts from Cornwall.
Yeah.
Like you said, the cable coming in, from the Atlantic and Goonhilly.
Yeah. And I think when we look at some of our opportunities related to net zero, when you think that there's more B Corps in Cornwall than anywhere outside of London in the UK, when you look at some of the advancements in terms of, lithium mining, in terms of,
Offshore wind.
Offshore wind, all of that stuff is going to be, the things that really gets the UK moving forward in terms of our net zero journey. And Cornwall is the place that's doing that. They're relying on us for that to happen. And, that's a very different position for us to be putting ourselves in and talking about ourselves in that way, I think is very important.
No, exciting times. Now, you work within Cornwall Trade and Investment. So just tell us a little bit about that before my next question about how you deal with the day-to-day running of that, managing stress, things like that might enter your life. So just tell us a bit about what Cornwall Trade and Investment set up to do.
So our main purpose is to have a positive economic impact to Cornwall, and we do that by trying to attract investment to Cornwall, looking around the world and finding businesses that are looking to expand their operations and convincing them that Cornwall is the place that they should do that. And by that nature, we also look at how we can help local businesses access those markets around the world as well and increase the amount that they trade and how they network with that kind of international network. So the main point of that is to increase the amount of career opportunities in Cornwall, increase the amount of export capacity that the region can pump out, and really see, improvements in innovation and in those key industries, some of them we mentioned before, coming to Cornwall and really sort of changing how this place can operate in an economic way.
Yeah, sure. Okay. No, makes sense. So is it a membership organisation then? How do businesses get involved? Or how do they benefit from it?
Not at all the membership organisation. It's an organisation that exists through funding by central government and Cornwall Council. So we're here. We don't charge for our services. We look to work with businesses that are growing, that are looking to take that next step in terms of internationalization. So certainly from a local business point of view, we want to speak to anyone that's interested in improving their kind of export potential. Any businesses that are, and all businesses that I've worked with in the past, it's amazing to see the network in Cornwall. So keen to be an ambassador, as you say, like yourself. Keen to fly the flag for Cornwall, in a more philanthropic way quite often, just to really sort of shout about the county. And also anyone that has any international connections in terms of, businesses that might be interested in locating in Cornwall, then we're always keen to hear about them.
Now, you ladies seem to be kind of leading all sorts of things here in Cornwall. The ladies are very dominant, I think. I think that's very important for business. How do you feel that the kind of mix of male and female, him and them, he and she, and whatever anyone identifies themselves, how do you think that mix is? I mean, you ladies are really spearheading. You've got some great names down here leading. You're doing great things. How do you feel that mix is at the moment?
Well, I think I think we've got a bit of a blueprint in Cornwall of how things should be everywhere else. I think we're perhaps quite lucky in the sense that for a long time there's been a lot of strong female leadership in Cornwall. It seems to be something that's embraced and accepted, and it doesn't need to be a big issue. But that's not always the case everywhere. So I think it's great again when we're looking outwardly and facing the rest of the world. Once again, we can be leading on something and showing that, actually there can be a nice diverse background of leadership in a place, and it create a really effective outcome.
So when you're working your day-to-day your job, your career, and things are going well, that's great. But what do you do when things aren't working? So things aren't going your way. What do you do to kind of change your mindset?
I think it's I've had a lot of time to reflect on work and life and balance, and putting those three words together is something that people do use that term quite flippantly, work life balance. But I have experienced situations where I know that stress and pressure has had a really negative impact on my health, and on my ability to to really have a happy balanced life, and I've really learned from that. I think it's really important that people always maintain a bit of perspective on
Hmm.
what's important, why we're doing all of this stuff, making sure that they recognize when we've been through a period of a lot of stress and being under a lot of pressure, that actually you give yourself the opportunity to stop and just relax and enjoy that moment, rather than always pushing on and pushing through. I've always been someone that's really got a kick out of being under pressure, and I think that adrenaline can be quite addictive, and it's something that you get a real buzz out of. But everybody has to stop sometimes, and I've certainly learnt that over the last few years, that it's good to stop. It's just as useful to recharge, reflect, and then take on the next day, in the right frame of mind. So I think that's a really important lesson for anyone, just to know your limits and maintain some perspective. Um, I remember once, it doesn't help a brain surgeon, but someone once told me that, we're not brain surgeons, if you just wait and stop for a moment, nothing terrible is going to happen.
Yeah, sure.
Um, and like I say, it's not helpful for a brain surgeon because they're under a lot of pressure.
Of
But some of
course.
us, we just need to have a little bit of
But they
context.
think differently, right?
Well,
So,
true.
everyone thinks differently.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to go into this question, and that is, can you leverage economic business benefits from emotional ties?
Yes. Yes. And I think we see that so often in Cornwall. And we're really, really excited to be doing some more work on this. So rather than us just looking at FDI, foreign direct investment, in the sense of finding businesses to come and locate here, we're doing some work where we're appealing to the massive diaspora network around the world that we know exists, mainly because of the mining sector. Um, Millions of people are based around the world and consider themselves to be Cornish, or at least have that connection to Cornwall for some reason. And they want to help Cornwall. They want to get involved, and they want to feel like they've had a positive impact. And we know that there's some great models of diaspora networks being very formally structured from Scotland and Ireland. They do these things really well, and as a fellow Celtic nation in Cornwall, we can also leverage those relationships. And so we're putting out a bit of a call at the moment, to starting off just with North America, where we know that census information says that there's millions of people in America that consider themselves to be Cornish, and say, okay, well, if you are interested and able, would you be willing to, to engage with the business network in Cornwall, and help in whichever way that they can, whether it be through expanding a network in someone might be based in Washington, and a business in Cornwall might be interested in doing some work in Washington. So suddenly they might have a point of contact on the ground there to gain some insight from. Or it might be that there's, an angel investor that's based in New York, and actually they would love to hear about the businesses in Cornwall that are growing. And let me focus in, when they've got millions of opportunities out there, then I'm sure they'd quite like to shortlist by looking
Mm.
at the ones from Cornwall first. So that's what we're starting to do. We're looking to see what engagement we get from that market. We think it's going to be pretty good, because we always hear from people that, oh, I'm Cornish, my family's from Crantock, or
Mm.
and yeah, so now looking to see how we can formally engage with them.
And there are some great people out there doing great good, people who would say made it and they want to reinvest and see Cornwall do well. How do you make sure that we're not missing out some of the good gems that are down here? How are you aware of the businesses doing good things that you can put them in touch with these people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always important for us to maintain our engagement with local businesses. For a start, when we're talking to a foreign business that's interested in locating in Cornwall, quite often just a dinner or a coffee with a local business leader is what it takes to get them to be convinced that they should come and locate here. So we know that how important our business network is, and I'm always so inspired by the business leaders that we have here, doing incredible things on a global stage.
Mm.
So yeah, it's great to be able to shout about them. That quite often they become our kind of poster people of what business in Cornwall looks like,
Mm.
and some really good points of contact.
And it's very buoyant, like you said, with the kind of business community down here. It really has got a great vibe at the minute. There's many, networking groups. I think the businesses peer to peer tend to, meet up. You can't go into any coffee house in Cornwall and not find people having meetings and supporting each other. And that's quite a good thing to be proud of, I think, for the community of business here in Cornwall.
Yeah, it's so visible. It's the one thing that I mean, I cannot remember a single business that we've worked with that have come to Cornwall to look at whether they should
Mm.
operate here that hasn't said that the Cornish business community is incredibly collaborative. It's just the first observation that all of them have, and I don't know whether we even realize it because we're around it all the time. But if you go to other places around the UK, you wouldn't necessarily feel that. You'd actually probably feel the opposite in terms of being guarded and being a
Mm.
bit more competitive. But actually here, I think we really all work together brilliantly. So it's seen as a real positive.
Indeed. I mean, the Cornish are very warm people. And I think people who have chosen Cornwall to be the home have adapted that, and that's what they like it, and they're warm people. And people are always very approachable. When I have people come to Cornwall here at the studios doing any recording, and they've come down from London, Birmingham, wherever it may be, and they're always like, everyone's so nice. Yeah, this is it. This is God's county. This is it.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? How
All
you can
starts here.
be successful and be nice.
Yeah,
That's
and be humble. I know this always happens to me, but the time is flying by. I want to get from you any favorite. You sound well read. We talked about this in the green room, but do you have a favorite book? Do you have a favorite kind of inspirational leader quote to sum up, the podcast for you?
Well, I love music. I love books, but I'm really bad at reading them fully.
I'm the same. I'm the same. It's
I've
not a
got
bad thing.
millions on my bookshelf that I love to pick at.
They look
But,
good on the
yeah, they
bookshelf.
look. Oh, it's all about what they look like. But no, it's not. But
It is. It is for me anyway.
color coded. Yeah. But I really love how old philosophy just continues to be relevant. Like, how can someone who was around hundreds and hundreds of years ago have said something that everybody can really relate to now? And there's a chap called Boethius,
Okay.
and I haven't read all his work, but he
Okay.
talks about history being a wheel and about everything being about flux and change. And there's a great quote, and I actually heard it from a film called 24-Hour Party People, which is all about music. So I'm not well read, and that isn't how I came across it. But he talks about how good times are always followed by bad times, and bad times are always followed by good times. And I always think that that's really important, whether it be in business, with your personal life. It's just really recognize when things are going well, because you should enjoy that, because it's not always going to go well. And then when things are bad, just always having that hope that it's going to end and it's going to get better. So yeah.
That's great. It's the cause and effect. You can't have one without the other.
No.
You can't have good without bad.
And you can't
You know.
enjoy the good so much if you've not had the bad.
That's
and
right.
Vice versa.
Exactly. It's got to coexist. Nicola, my goodness me. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I've got to wrap things up now. But thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed the experience?
It's been great. Thank you so much.
What do you
Thanks
think
for
of
inviting me.
What do you think of our humble little studios?
It's
On the
absolutely
edge of Bodmin Moor.
fantastic. Beautiful setting.
Oh.
Everyone should come here.
Oh, bless you. Well, look, thank you so much. Well, look, if you're not already following this wonderful lady, Nicola Lloyd, make sure you do so. Cornwall Trade and Investment is where you'll find her on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
And as always, I'd like to thank Megan, the team here, and Jay, Kennett for putting together today's podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure you share it, like it, love it, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And from myself and Nicola, thank you very much for listening, and have yourself the most amazing remainder of your day. Thank you.